Hey, Think Realty Nation, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. We're live on site at our Tampa conference at Expo, which is great because then I get to bring in personal guests for this podcast, and it's always way more fun than Zoom. So before we jump into a lot of content today on using leverage to grow your portfolio, ways to find capital for your short-term rentals, all that type of stuff, let me say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor, which is Real Property Management. Working with the right property management company can put more money in your pocket, not less. Real Property Management provides a higher standard of property management to make sure you're maximizing the return on your investments. Experience the real difference with Real Property Management. Visit realpropertymgt.com. That's realpropertymgt.com. Our guest today is Mark, and Mark, most of you would know him if you've been around our Think Realty Expos at all, because he works with Templeview Capital. And so every time you guys are out here sponsoring it, you're always on the floor with us, so I always appreciate the support and appreciate you being a part of it.
Love to be here.
But I think that for our listeners and viewers, it's important for them to understand that not only do you work with Templeview, but you're also a real estate investor, right? And so if you don't mind, kind of just tell us a bit about your journey. How did you get involved in real estate investing? What are the types of deals you're currently doing?
Sure. For me, it's always been like getting back. I think in 2003, I got into the mortgage industry out of college, and rode the wave of the low rates and just order taking, and then went to wholesale mortgages.
Sure.
And wholesale, it was ridiculous because you were selling money to banks that were then lending out the subprime mortgage thing, the Big Short movie and all that. And then it crashed. I was working with First Franklin, but they were owned by Merrill Lynch. So we had this whole severance thing, and then I got into this company that were buying defaulted mortgage, and that was essentially MCM, which is the owner of Templeview.
Sure.
And what we were doing on these workouts were like calling the people that I originated loans for, essentially, because they were so over equity, and you really got into the the REO, and I was an asset manager, so I managed all these properties, and then I was pretty good at it. At one point, I think I had like 250 listed properties under management and all over the country. So I met all these real estate agents. I got really into the real estate investing side. And in 2003, when I was making all the money, I bought houses. I was in my 20s. So the problem is they crashed, and I had to figure out how to manage to pay those things, right? And that's kind of my journey into short-term rental, because that was the only way to make ends meet, because they were beach houses. One's in Florida, and one was in Bethany Beach, Maryland. And so I figured out how to make this work, and then while I was at Templeview working and being this asset manager, we really got into that. Okay, I can do this. I can jump into it. I can flip, because I was being an asset manager was really cool because I was getting paid to basically learn the business.
Right.
So having agents like give me bids and then managing through that. So I got really and a lot of people from your podcast, they're like, man, pay someone and just like ride their coattails, kind of get that knowledge. And that was cool for me because I was able to do that, but it was my job.
Sure.
So I started jumping into a great partner. We did some successful flips using Templeview's leverage. Was great, having the ability to have that backbone and really have the ability to put less money down. And that's what Templeview will do as a nationwide lender. I can buy anywhere I want.
Sure.
They can do like a 10% acquisition, an advanced draw feature, really keeping money in my pocket, and there's no payments during the flip process.
Sure.
So you can scale.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We did 1 year, we had done 9. And then of course, like anybody else, you get the one rental and you see the positive cash flow, you do the BRRRR strategy and you get your money back out from the refi, and then you're like, okay, now I want to get my rentals going.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of the journey. And then we had bought a couple of multifamily, 4-unit properties. They were doing well. But like anything else, when people jump into rentals, instead of doing your flips, making your money, you got to have the money. People will get into a situation where they get squeezed a little bit. If they can't get all their money back out, these are lessons that they'll learn during the process.
Sure.
And that's why, like, if you have a good partner, a lender that will continue to give you money, you can still scale and still acquire properties.
Sure. Yeah. And how important is leverage? I mean, I am a big proponent of leverage. my father, grandfather. I'm third generation real estate investor. And I think sometimes the older generation leverage is bad, right? It's like they just want to own them free and clear. It's their retirement. But there's a reason why I have over 4,000 doors today, and that's because I love leverage, right? Like leverage actually spreads my risk over so many more assets. But to you, how important is leverage and having a leverage partner like Templeview or anyone that provides those type of services?
There's no question leverage is good. And you're exactly right. The old time investors, pay off the house, pay off the house, pay off the house. It's like, okay, but you're paying off a house at 3 or 4%, your primary or something,
right.
or even your leveraged properties, it's still 7-8%.
Right.
So you can't borrow money at these,
Sure.
Are you going to make more than that on the return? So the cash on cash return is exactly what I look at. The leverage partner like Templeview allows you to scale, allows you to really, take this and make it a business, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about, okay, you get the three pieces. You got your real estate side, knowing valuations, right? You have your money side, whoever's putting the money in the deal, and of course the loan that you're backing, your Templeview, and then of course you have your construction side. Those three pieces of the puzzle, people get wrong all the time, right? If you don't have that partner, that person in there that can really take your back or have your back, and that's the other thing too. We're focused at Templeview, we're focused on the customer, and so we do things that help them out, right? Like there's not a, hey, when you're flipping a home and you get your plans and permits to us, cool, send that in, we'll give you an advanced draw to get you started. And then you get that done, you get another advanced draw. So your cash flow in your bank, so the cool thing about that loan, to your point with leverage, and I'll give you an example of a deal I just did. I mean, it's an Eastern Shore property, $320,000 acquisition. I've got to put down $35,000. We got the seller to pay all closing costs for us. It's $35,000, and then I'm going to close that loan and then have an advanced draw for my plans and permits and demo at like $17,000. And when that's done, I'm going to get a $45,000 wire, and then so on and so forth.
Right.
And no payments. They let you borrow against future value, which is a pretty cool concept. And your payments are escrowed the entire way.
Sure.
And then, so really if I'm trying to do like a business, or raise money or not put any of my own money and say, hey, you want to give me $35,000 on this deal, and I'll give you a 10% return. I mean, I can then do that deal and no money out of pocket, give a guy a return, and I'm good. Moving on.
All day long. Yeah. It is great, like tools like that. And I think that a lot of real estate investors don't understand that this is available to them. They think that they have to, most guys that I talk to, they're fronting these deals $50,000 to $100,000, and they're having to hold that much cash on these deals to make sure that it cash flows the entire way through the construction process or the rehab process, and they have enough cash at the end to take them all the way to the point where they can get long-term debt. And to have a partner like Templeview that has a program specifically for these types would be amazing for them, I would believe. Let's talk about short-term rentals. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news today with short-term rentals. You have markets like Dallas that are cutting down, cutting back. I found that for me, I'm a buy and hold guy, that short terms have been extremely valuable to me if it's the right use of the property, right? And I think the hardest part about it is finding a capital partner to actually fund those, right? Because they're not a traditional DSCR loan, right? Debt service coverage ratio. They're not a traditional loan where they're not looking at your 1 year rent rolls or the last 6 months or whatever they deem to be the period that they want to look at. And I know you guys do that. And as a matter of fact, you've actually lent on a couple of my properties down in South Florida. But talk to me about the strength of short term. Why do you like short term, and then how does Templeview help people get into short term?
I mean, it's one of my passions, really. I mean, and to your point, I own 15 of them now that are performing, and I actually bought more that I had to, based on the municipality and what happened in these certain areas and the need. They were moved to midterm and long-term rentals.
Sure.
But really, the story goes back to, I was at a conference and I was talking with a bunch of guys that had these big mountain houses in Scottsdale. And, as a lender at Templeview, I'm just trying to talk them up, get some business and figure it out. Because, we can go up to $4 million on these loans.
Sure.
$2 million is on the book. So, it's a 1.8 valuation, and the guy's like, I can't get a loan for it. Great credit, great assets, $1 million in the bank. couldn't get a loan
because he was using it as a short-term rental.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I know, based on already having my short-term rentals, what these comps are. There's the different, AirDNA.co will give you your rent comps, and you can pull the data, right? And this thing is, making $400,000 a year. You couldn't get a loan. And he has a back end, and it literally says, $422,000. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. And your DSCR ratio is like over 4 over 4.
4, yeah.
So went back to Temple and I said, look, can we do something here? This is crazy. And then, we were the first to market on the short-term rental loan, based on going to our partners and just kind of showing the data and backing it up. Data never lies. And then there was this craze. COVID happened, right? Like, one thing to remember, that Templeview never shut down during COVID. So we were there with these programs, and we might have not escrowed 12 payments. It might have been 18.
Right.
To protect everyone.
Sure.
We're customer focused. Like, you might need an extra 8 months, and there might be money out of your pocket, but this is really a protection for you and the lender, so we would be able to pass. We knew there was a problem, but we never closed our doors for both retail and our TPO partners. But on the short-term rental side, we looked at it as an opportunity. Most of these properties are in A+ areas, right? Like, they're going to be good properties. They're going to continue to not only, be a desirable purchase, but you're not going to lose a lot of value, in some of these markets. One of the things that happened is, what about Atlanta, Hawaii? These areas that are focused on hotel chains, they said, no, we got to figure this out. You're taking all of our business. Because one of the things that happened in COVID, and I saw this in my own properties, there's 60% of the people who never even did Airbnb, they went to Airbnb, or they went to short-term rental, Vrbo, all these sites. And what happened? They loved it. Oh my God, I get so much more. I could bring my dog.
Right.
I mean, I got places for my kids to play. There's amenities. It just changed the mental thought process to people instead of going to hotels.
Sure.
And so that's where I think this crazy drive to short-term rentals, and people, and I'm, as a licensed agent, being able in my market to be able to tell even my friends, hey man, you go to the beach? Cool. What do you spend? Like, what do you got? You got some money? You want to get one of these rentals? Because use it as an asset. And this is where people got involved. And the real trick of the trade is, and this with your short-term rentals, is do you have the partners behind you to manage and do all those things? But for us, as on the letting side, and DSCR is one of our strongest products, and we created that product to take out. So not only are you doing, acquisition, fix and flip, you're doing fix and rent, right? And you're doing that, like, you guys know the term the Burch strategy, right? But I've been doing it on the short-term rental side because, there's ways to get all your money back out of those. Right. And look, that's the best one to look at, because you're not only getting it and creating value and creating your nightly rate to increase by doing amenities and different things and making it nice and unique. You're able to take what you've developed, get your money back out, and then do it again.
Right. Yeah, it's huge. And the ability to actually do that and rinse and repeat is so important. And I think that when somebody actually understands the BRRRR process, the ability to create opportunity long-term and exponentially and create it is impressive. The interesting part is you can actually do BRRRRs with short-term rentals. And the thing is I very rarely do I hear people talking about a BRRRR for a short-term rental, but it actually, to some degree, exponentially increases, because typically your BRRRR on these are higher valued properties, right? And if you do a good job and you underwrite properly, like, you're getting all that money back out, and then you're processing in. And so if you do a BRRRR on typically a short-term rental, and you're buying properties that are worth double what your traditional long-terms are worth, your net profit actually can double, triple versus doing a BRRRR just on a short-term rental, right? Which is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone says when you BRRRR your rental property, long-term rental, you're going to get the highest rent, and it's going to, attract the best, customer for that area. Right. It's almost the same exact thing on that side.
Right.
When you're BRRRRing that short-term rental and you want to renovate the kids' room, you're not just putting a bunk bed in there. You can build like a castle and a slide on the side. You can do, and the outdoor amenities are so important. The fire pit. just the outdoor seating, the bistro lights on the outside.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot of money to do that.
Right.
But
Right.
you can really develop this thing and really make it something special. I mean, I'm in the Maryland market. What do people do in Maryland? They eat crabs. So we put a patio out. We cover it. We put the outdoor sink. I mean, because what you got to do? You got to wash your hands. So like people go, oh man, I can go eat my crabs here. It's a screened in porch.
Right.
It's just something that is not a normal thing.
Yeah.
But it's like well received, and that's really what it comes down to get more money.
That's awesome. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate all the insight. We're about out of time. If you don't mind, how can they get a hold of you or Templeview to potentially maximize these opportunities?
Sure. I mean, we're at TempleviewCap.com. We have a 800 number on there. You can call right into the sales line. You'll get somebody like me on the phone. We have a couple of different ways to do business with us, right? We can do a retail deal. If you're a broker or partner, you can partner with us on the other side. You can deliver us loans. We buy loans. I mean, we're very focused, customer focused, and we're really interested in creating partnerships for a very long term. And we're continuing to evaluate our programs, change them for customer service, customer based, loans that need to be tweaked.
Sure.
We're keep our loans in a situation where, we want the customer to come first.
Right.
And I think that's what we're all about. Customer first. Let's figure out how to get you closed. Let's work on this to really to deliver the value for you, because we want you to be successful.
Yeah.
We want you to do it again.
It's awesome. Yeah, quick plug for Templeview. I was in a situation where I'd built a bunch of brand new properties in Cape Coral, Florida, and they were complete, had occupancy permits, and was still under the construction loan. And I was actually putting short-term tenants in it because I couldn't get long-term lending. And I was working on everything, and I just could not get somebody to fund it. And I'd known of you guys forever, and I referred a ton of people to you guys. And I was talking to the builder down there, and he was like, have you talked to Templeview? And I said, no, I haven't. I said, do they do short term? He's like, he said, I think they kind of are the first to the market at short term. And I was like, oh, okay. And ended up a phone call later, and about 20 days later, I had two of those things, fully funded, ready to go in long term. And it was such an easy process, and I was kind of shocked how easy it was. And for me, I always thought of my short terms as I'm going to have to go get conventional financing, so I'm going to be able to put 10 of these things in my name, and all these limitations I had. And when I realized, like, wait a minute, I've got a partner there that can do probably as many as I want to do or I feel comfortable doing, it made a lot of sense. So huge, shout out and gratitude for Templeview for what they've done for me, and I appreciate it. And if you're a real estate investor thinking about short term or thinking about long term buy and holds, Templeview is one of those companies that I recommend and push people to often. So I would highly recommend you getting in touch with Mark, talking to the people at Templeview. Go to TempleviewCap.com, right?
Yeah, TempleviewCap.com. And just to piggyback on what you just said, we do have a very competitive spec home ground up product.
Yeah.
Just to your point, if you're doing even like a new ground up like you did, like I know you got your own business partner down there, but like for us, we can actually finance the complete ground up construction side of that.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, we need to talk about that pretty soon too.
Yeah, we get
a bunch more.
A bunch more. You got it.
All right. Thanks so much for watching and listening today for the podcast. I want to say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor one more time, which is Real Property Management. Real Property Management will put more money in your pocket than take it out. I think sometimes we think about property management, we think, well, they're going to take a percentage fee. But the reality of it, it's done right. You can go get more assets, more properties. They can take the headaches and the hassle away from you so that you can focus on deals, deal structure, acquisitions, rehab, so on and so forth. You owe it to yourself to give them a call or go to their website at realpropertymgt.com. That's realpropertymgt.com. And before we close, I want you to consider coming out to our conferences and expos. The next one coming up is March 28th and 29th in Phoenix, Arizona. It's the first time Think Realty has ever gone to Phoenix, and so I want to have a big crowd out there. Many of you that live out in that area have reached out and said, please bring a show to Phoenix, so we're going to do that in March. So to incentivize you to do that and bring out your friends, we're going to do a buy one, get one free. You can go to thinkrealty.com/Phoenix and put in the code PODCAST, 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 and it'll give you a buy one, get one free on tickets so that you can come and bring a friend or a spouse or a business partner. We'd love to see you out there. Make sure you make plans to join us in Phoenix. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Connect with us on social for any questions, updates, concerns, thoughts, ideas, and we will take care of you. Have a great day.